So I'm thinking this might be a helpful way to review the paper since we can't meet in person. So I was thinking I would try to go through some points with you and show you where I'm seeing this fall in the rubric right now. And you can still make revisions so that when you turn in your final portfolio, you can get everything into the category where you want it to be. So generally, I would say that you're communicating ideas well in terms of your control of language, and you're citing your sources properly. Your works cited looks good. In terms of some specific things, I guess one of the things that I'm thinking when I'm reading the introduction is that the thesis seems just a little general to me. So you're introducing what the universal basic income is, and I would say, by the way, you don't need to put it here, here, and here. I think I'm thinking is your source that you're referring to. And if that's the case, then you could just use the word universal. You don't need the whole thing. Or because you've got, I think what you need here, you probably don't need that at all. I'm not sure though. As we get through it, I'll take another look. It's just occurring to me now as I'm looking at it again. So you go on and you kind of try to frame it a little bit. And you try to put some context here about the problems that you're going to address, from welfare inequality, automation, and its limiting effect on working families' jobs, and political corruption, etc. Issues that face the middle and lower class in our society. Okay, so that's not a sentence. It's not a complete thought. And then this isn't really either, but UBI offers a new solution to fixing these problems. So you could address the sentence issue by just taking this out of it, the but. UBI offers a new solution to fixing these problems. And I think for me, this is so general, and I know you're trying to tie it back to this, but what I think that you're not necessarily doing is balancing this argument with exactly how or why UBI offers a solution. And then because of that, you spend a lot of time in the body of your paper fleshing out what these problems are. So you spend a chunk of time talking about welfare inequality, you spend a lot of time on automation and its effect on working families' jobs, and then you spend some time on political corruption, but you don't really balance the argument with how this offers a solution. And if this is your point, this is your argument, then I think you need to lean a little bit more into how this offers a solution. And you're definitely just more explaining what these issues are. So another thing that I noticed is that you sort of, okay, so for instance, if your thesis is UBI offers a solution to problems of welfare inequality, then that's what this should be saying here. So here is just stating a fact that you're putting forward about welfare becoming a trap. So in an ideal writing situation or in an argument, you're laying out your argument very clearly and saying, so something like welfare inequality has, I think what you're saying here, has become a trap for poverty, families living in poverty, and UBI offers a new solution to address standard of living or life, standard of living issues or something like that. So it needs to be a broader umbrella. because that allows you, having that kind of a topic sentence, it allows you the umbrella you need to explore not only the welfare inequality issue, but also how this UBI offers a solution. Um, so I'm not even sure. Let's see. So the other thing I guess I'm noticing is that you've got some very long paragraphs that have an awful lot of information in them. And I think I said this in your feedback on the previous draft. And I would really recommend that you break this out into 2 paragraphs. You do start addressing the UBI calls for redistribution of funds, not a sudden printing of money. But again, that doesn't seem to get at the point that you're trying to make in this argument, unless I'm missing what you're trying to say, in which case that's a little bit of a different problem to address. And I don't think, like, here you're talking about where the money is going to come from, which may be an attempt to address a counterclaim, which is important for you to do. This isn't the place to do it, though, here. That probably should come toward the end of the argument, and in its own space where you're clearly, acknowledging that there are some problems, and some people are going to say that the money's got to come from somewhere, as you're suggesting here, but you want to give that its own space. This section here, think of the last time you went into a supermarket compared to 10 years ago. What's different? I understand, what you're probably thinking is that you're trying to engage your reader in some thinking, but it was kind of more puzzling to me than helping advance your argument. So one thing you might keep in mind in this is that in an argument, it's less important that you're sort of entertaining than it is that you're laying your case out in a methodical, logical way. And this doesn't really flow logically from the topic. So what you would need here, I think, instead would be tying back to this idea that UBI offers a solution to the impact of automation on working families or working class jobs, something like that. And I think that particular argument needs a little more fleshing out to be really clear. Because I think what you're saying is that because so many of these lower end, sort of entry level, lower wage jobs are being eliminated because of automation, which is causing obviously some issues for people. So I think what you're proposing is that this $1,000 universal basic income per month alleviates the necessity for someone to get a job. I'm not sure if that's what you're saying. So again, I guess because I'm unclear, you want to clarify in that what exactly is the solution that UBI offers that is connected to automation, and that should be how you open it, how you open this paragraph. And again, you spend a lot of time, and it looked like you did a lot of research about how automation has an impact on various types of organizations and companies, but it's not till you get to here, right? So how does UBI come into play? If this is your point, this should be framing this paragraph. It shouldn't come in, 3/4 of the way. And then still, again, you've got an incredibly way too long paragraph there. So use as a gauge that your typical paragraph is going to be, a college level paper is going to be 8 to 10 sentences in this type of paper. And if you start getting like to the point where you are here, where you're going almost 2 pages for one paragraph. It's too much. So what happens is you might have really good information here, but as a reader, you get fatigued when you're reading the same paragraph, trying to keep it all organized in my head as I'm reading it. And you don't want to do that, because that's like if you're in an argument, or if you're a lawyer presenting a case, it's like you take a breath and you just keep going for a really long time without changing your tone, or pausing for a moment to emphasize an idea. Think of it in the same way. You need to allow your reader to take a breath, to pause, so that you get emphasis where you need it. And in a paragraph this long, there's not a place to take that breather. And you don't want your reader to take it because they're not able to stick with you. So that's something you want to take another look at. And then again, this one, you dove right into your idea of, I'm assuming, political corruption, but you want to be really explicit and frame that paragraph very clearly connected to, the bigger argument you're making. And don't leave it for the reader to interpret. Be explicit when you're explaining, when you're writing your topic sentence. That's really what it's going back to. So when I look at this again, what I am hoping to see is a really clear topic sentence at the beginning of each paragraph, some smaller paragraphs that are more tightly organized in terms of a unified idea. And I'll show you on the rubric something to look for. And then as you're getting toward your conclusion here, I think there's an opportunity here to talk about why something like universal basic income is important. And, you're saying you want to have to we should tackle issues. But I think it's also about just a basic standard of living in a country like America, where there are enough resources so that people shouldn't have to go hungry. And food insecurity is a huge issue. I mean, I kind of felt like that might be an opportunity there to address that. And it's maybe appealing to a different, there's maybe more of an emotional appeal, but that is something I think that people who argue for UBI would probably say is a compelling argument, that having a basic level income allows for a standard of living that in a country like ours we should be able to provide all people. And I think maybe that's something you missed in this argument generally. So that's something to consider more on a content basis. All right, so very quickly, I just want to pull up the rubric in the way that I'm seeing it right now. So I'm seeing the demonstrates a process of inquiry and investigation. I'm seeing that as a satisfactory pretty much across the board. The interpreting and evaluating complex text. So I think this is something you want to look at. And really this is about, when you look at this part of the rubric, it's you didn't really acknowledge the complexities of this issue and the biases that exist around it. Even the whole Republican Democrat aspect of it, this was a political suggestion initially, political idea. So not addressing the other side is a significant miss that you will want to address. And this one, you're kind of in between the next two. And I think one, when you can clarify your thesis and those claims, those topic sentence, when you get those to be a little bit more clear, I think that will tighten up this above it, because you'll naturally recognize, I think, where you need to strengthen some of those positions. Overall here, you're really close. So I'm going to run out of time, but please let me know if you have questions, and you're on